Hello and welcome to the next episode in the series of podcasts brought to you by Insurindex. My name is David Melvin, and this is where we shine a spotlight on the evolving role of branding in the insurance industry. From our studio, we explore during the course of this series how brand identity and innovative marketing strategies are driving growth and transforming the insurance specialty market. And to get these insights, we interview C-suite leaders of insurance companies to dig beneath the surface of their initiatives. In this episode, we're asking the question, to what extent are the startups eating the big guns' breakfast? In early 2021, a next-generation specialty insurance company was founded. Nearly 4 years later, Mosaic Insurance is now global, an established player, and a market disruptor. And today I'm incredibly honoured to be joined by two individuals from Mosaic Insurance. Mark Wheeler, the co-chief executive and director, and Rosemary Jones, the Chief Communications Officer. Now, Mark, maybe we could briefly wind back to 2021 and consider the vision that you and Mitch Blazer, your co-founder, had that has enabled you to be the player you are now.
Yeah, good. And good morning. And thanks for having us. And it's great to have the opportunity to talk about Mosaic. So our vision was very simple. It was to set up a global specialty insurer and excel in what we do. And all of that was really built on the belief of the power in partnership, and particularly what partnerships could do through collaboration to really transform our ability to innovate. And that's reflected in aspects of how we've been able to bring syndication together, how we've been able to select risk, all the things that are important in an insurance company. Our differentiation points, I think, are principally our people and their judgment and expertise, our ability to select risk, and that really ties back in with the partnership idea. So we partner with entities from other industries that allow us to assess likelihood and magnitude of risk in a way that we haven't been able to do as an industry in the past. That's really exciting. And that's a big part of, I think, about what differentiates us. There's an element of product expertise. And I think crucially from a branding perspective, our claims service and claims performance. And I'd love to expand on that later, but that's a key differentiator.
And you mentioned people is a big part of the whole of the strategy and your brand. Is that something that's played a huge part in the initial branding strategy, getting the right people and recruiting very carefully about who they are? Because I think Gracechurch rank you as one of the top places to work.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every company says their people are their biggest asset, and we really did start with that principle. And in fact, because we underwrite on behalf of others, we have 26 other partners that sit alongside us in the product that we eventually create for our clients. We've extended that to say that our people are your asset as well. So in the sense that many large established brands are balance sheet companies, our role is really to provide underwriting expertise. So we spend a lot of time talking about what a Mosaic person is, and it's obviously wrapped up in our brand and our culture. But in essence, we would distill it down to an individual's judgment and experience.
And what part do you think as brand played in I mean, this is a very traditional market, and you've come in and risen the way you have and become, as I said before, a disruptor. Do you think your brand and the way you set it out and the differentiating strategies have been a key part of that disruption? Rose, what do you?
Yeah, I think it's been critical. And I think just stepping back, in that vision that Mitch and Mark had, even, just pre-launch, they made communications and marketing a priority. So, that allowed me to get in, on the ground floor and start building our brand from day one, which was a gift. I think that's pretty rare in our industry, to have the freedom and the scope right from the start, and for it to be built as one of the key priorities, recognizing the value of brand with the business.
Yes, and the name Mosaic sort of, I think, brings together all the different components of your kind of vision when you started.
Exactly. And that's at the heart of the partnership with purpose. It's bringing different elements together, different other underwriting carriers, technology companies, both in process and risk selection. So how we bring those all together to create a different model. And to Rose's point, because it is different, we really had to focus on the branding aspect of that right from the outset. I think it's also important that we formed the company and launched during COVID.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, it was definitely harder. It was a bigger challenge.
Yeah.
So we had to be very careful and very deliberate about how we presented the brand.
In many ways, that was, it was a gift, in other ways, as a small company with a small budget. And, to be born in that era, as a startup anyway, having a legacy, free of the legacy of, legacy tech or legacy balance sheet is always a plus. But during the pandemic, it pushed us to go purely digital and use digital channels and, in an era of, the golden era really of cloud computing. So we were allowed to go global faster perhaps and to reach the audiences faster.
And do you think there were other innovative strategies that enabled you to differentiate yourself from the other challenges that startups that started at the same time? And has given you, you say tech and people, but do you think there are other things that manage you to totally differentiate yourself from some of these other startups, which you have?
Well, I think one of the big gifts, even though we were technically on paper, in words, a startup, we came into it with people who were highly recognized, who brought track records. They were known quantities, hugely successful. Mitch and Mark had been successful in their previous lives. The key leadership team and the underwriters that were selected are the best in their fields and known in the market. So it helped us get off to a running start. I think it wasn't from nothing.
No, true. And presumably the innovative strategies you've kept on innovating because you can't sit still, and so there must be a constant sort of plan to innovate and not change your brand, but enhance that brand and get that story across as much as you can to keep yourself in that position. Yeah,
and I think it, all those elements that we started with gave us a fantastic story to tell. The story of the vision, the different model that our company is, the select lines of business that, again, were so relevant and continue to be in current geopolitics, et cetera. So, it's very current, very relevant, and, there's a world of content to work with there.
It's 7 lines, isn't it, you've just focused on, and that'll stay 7, or are you thinking of expanding that?
We set some criteria around the lines of business that we wanted to write around profitable growth, and we have the appetite to go on and build those into global leading businesses, and importantly, shareholder backing to do that. So I wouldn't say we wouldn't introduce another line, but fundamentally, our desire is to stay relatively narrow and go very, very deep in those lines. And so in the next 6 or 7 years, we would like, maybe sooner in some, to be a top 3 global player in those lines. So there's a real commitment and an energy to that. I think one of the defining differences, it's not entirely unique, but everybody that works at Mosaic is a shareholder. So I think, that plays into how people engage. It plays into the energy. It plays into the desire to win. Everybody's aligned in that sense. Everybody thinks like an owner. And I think that's hugely powerful, and we shouldn't underestimate that.
Yes, no, true. And you recently met up with my colleague Ben Bolton to gain the award, the Fastest Riser Award. That's a pretty amazing achievement.
Yeah, I can't tell you how delighted we were with that, and particularly because of your point where we're a relatively narrow patch in the market. So to get that recognition across the London market community for the work that we're doing in a relatively small area is phenomenal. And it's particularly important to us because as we underwrite on behalf of other people, having the recognition from our peer underwriting group of the contribution we're making is it's just extraordinary. We're really thrilled with it.
They must be quite scared. some of these other players in the market. It's a very conservative, traditional, nothing changes and life goes on type market. And you've come up and kind of disrupted things. They must be kind of waking up in the mud and light. Who are these people? Why are they here? What's happening?
Well, it's a very big market, and there's definitely room for us, and we're not that's not our raison d'etre at all. I talked a little about innovation, so part of that's reflected in the model. So a big differentiator for us is selling a traditional London market style syndicated product, if you like, in different countries around the world. We think clients really like syndication. And we think that's one of the reasons why London has held a dominant global position for centuries. Really, going through the marine market into the market that's evolved today. So we would like to create a product that resonates with clients outside the UK as well. So we think we're really additive to the market in that sense. And as I mentioned, we've got 26 partners alongside us. And we do see ourselves as a challenger to the structure. But those partnerships are very important, that we stay aligned with other companies and grow profitably together. So it's not that I wouldn't share the set. We're not trying to be scary or displace. we're trying to build a business with other people.
It's an interesting paradigm, isn't it? The underwriters being competitive, and yet on the other hand syndicating together. So
yes,
it's a hallmark of London,
yeah,
isn't it? So it's natural, I think.
Yes, no, absolutely. And to get that award, going back to the award, did you put any? You had an original strategic set of goals thing. Have you done any recent changes to which you think might have caused you why you've got that fastest riser award now? Have you changed the direction of the model you talk about?
No, we haven't. We're relatively young, so we're just coming to the end of our third full year of underwriting. So one of the things that is exciting is we've got a lot more ideas than we've been able to play out so far. I think the reward the award and the recognition at the end of the day is essentially about the people and about the work they're doing to build business in London. And it's our business model. So I think that puts us more in the spotlight.
Yes. And you mentioned claims. Do you have a particular innovative branding strategy around your claim service?
I think that's a really interesting question because, and particularly in the context of brand and branding and the interplay, I suppose, between brand and trust and reputation and culture, that in many ways they're interchangeable. Having said that, you can't do culturing and you can't do reputationing, but you can do branding. And so we really wanted to concentrate on the claims settlement side in our branding and in the perception of the firm, because at the end of the day, we're selling a promise to pay a claim. Yeah. And that's really interesting. The notion of the promise in branding is fascinating to us because in many ways, a brand is a promise, and the trust that goes alongside that has many parallels with claims. So I think if one is doing well with claim settlement, then I think one could also argue that you've got a great brand because you're keeping a promise. So I'm really glad that you asked about that. So structurally, we are a little unusual in that our claims function is very much part of our underwriting function. So it's not a separate department. Clients meet our claims leadership up front in the onboarding process and the getting to know each other process.
That's part of the whole promise, isn't it?
It's absolutely part of the promise. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it means you don't sort of deal with a bunch of smiley people at the start of the transaction and then get introduced to a 300-pound gorilla at the other end. You know what you're buying, and it's part of that trust and transparency. So it absolutely.
And you've got to keep that brand resonating with the clients and the stakeholders, and it's an ongoing process. But it is a promise. You're out there with that promise. You've got to keep that promise. And
it's that promise aspect of brand, I think, that really resonated with us right from the outset. And brand, if you like, is everything, and everything is brand. It's about everything that we care about in the business, from the people, clients, distribution partners, stakeholders, investors, how we operate with them. And I think that's how that ties into the culture piece. So, I mean, we couldn't put it in a higher place in our business and how we present. I think the branding aspect, we think about that in a way of how we can present and influence. So, but obviously it has to be really authentic.
And what role does sort of client feedback have in continually shaping that brand? Is that
absolutely. I mean, it's important, especially now. This isn't traditional media, traditional marketing anymore. It's about real-time feedback via our social channels. It's about engaging with the clients and our audiences, and just being responsive. And I think that really is, when Mark was talking about who Mosaic person, who is a Mosaic person, and what values do we hold dear, and that's what we present to the world. So we have 3 corporate values: be bold, work together, and have fun. So
I love the last one.
Even though obviously it's a very serious business, and these are serious issues that we're tackling and trying to solve for clients. Our brand identity can be quite colorful, which we are. We stay away from typical corporate palette. And we go with orange and purple and yellow, and our offices reflect
that.
that.
Put my purple tie on for you.
He does.
But that distinguishes
on
it,
brand.
doesn't it? That absolutely on brand.
But it makes a bit of a splash. Maybe helps us stick out a bit, and incorporates that sort of energy that the team has that we were talking about. Yeah.
But it's kind of a balance between the conservative market. It is big, but the conservative market, and your strive for innovation and getting noticed and putting that branding and culture out there.
Yeah,
so it is a bit of a balance.
And Mark's point, I totally agree about trust. With reputation, and it works both ways. Reputation, a brand is built on reputations, as ours has been. But good branding hopefully also creates a reputation and builds it and grows it with your audience. So I think we're doing both, hopefully.
And what plans have you got for the future for strengthening that brand and that client promise?
We're on the business front, we're looking at new territories, or rather growing in certain areas. The US is a big focus for us in the next year and beyond. Europe as well.
I think innovation's a really key part of it, and that comes back to the partnership piece. Yeah, and this genuine belief that our ability to do that is transformed through partnership. So, there are things that we can accomplish with experts in other areas, be it through technology in transformation, in automation at one end of the scale, and then right at the other end of the scale, our sort of superpower, if you like, that we really want to cultivate and continue developing, and it will never end, is risk selection. So we have a number of partnerships, and most notably with SAFE, with Fulcrum Technologies, who are using AI-led data analysis to help our clients and their clients assess the likelihood and magnitude of risk. And those are 2 absolutely critical points in making decisions about whether you want to write a risk or not, and what the terms could be, and also helps improve the risk posture as well. So it's just a really great example of a constantly evolving part of the structure of the firm.
And as you said, your value be bold. I mean, it's bold of you to go into that new technology, AI and others, with an open mind and use it, actively. And of course, you don't have the hindrance of legacy technology, which has been a huge advantage.
Hugely important, and particularly given the time when we started and formed and launched the company in 2021, not having a tech legacy was incredibly liberating.
Does that make it easier, do you think, to embrace AI and not decision making, but decision support type systems, advanced decision support systems and underwriting? Does that give you almost make it easier to be bold and make decisions without worrying about?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it makes it easier, but by definition, we have less distraction.
Yeah.
And we don't have to deal with transforming existing structures. So,
and clients embrace the use of the AI. You using AI? Is that?
They do. They really do. And the benefit for them is we can really objectively assess risk. So, when I was a kid starting out underwriting, much of the underwriting assessment and client selection was pretty subjective. That's a good one. That feels like a good one. It's sort of inside our risk appetite. What's the difference between different companies in the same sector that may look similar on the surface? By being able to dig in to the exposures behind that, I think we can really importantly reward clients that do invest in risk management and do think carefully about how they manage their risk. So as they're investing, we can recognize, pick that up, and reward them accordingly.
And do you think AI will be flowing through into the claim side as well?
Definitely. Certainly in terms of processing, it already is. Yeah. And I think that's the area we'll see the most improvement in the immediate future.
And that'll change your views on people and thing, or the people roles will change?
Definitely. The sorts of people we're employing, particularly in data areas, nothing like, I was going to say 10 years ago, but nothing like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think to be fair, that's the same across the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, of course, looking back, what are the key lessons from a branding perspective you've learned from this Mosaic's journey?
I think, metrics, you're just talking about metrics and data, and that really increasingly drives how we make decisions on the branding side as well, obviously. The real-time data we can get from social campaigns, paid campaigns, where we can see the traction or non-traction of organic social, of videos. So we use that. I think just going forward, more of that, more podcasts.
Getting the story out there. And it's brand journalism in a way, mean, really, it's about continuing to tell our story. I think we've been pretty good about bringing people along on that journey. And, Mark's point about authenticity, I think we have been authentic about who we are, what we're trying to do. People have followed that and appreciated it, I think.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I'm really pleased that we did was very early on in the formation of the company and really before we started market outreach and market engagement, was we got everybody together, literally everybody, and we engaged some external help to sit down and actually think about what we wanted our firm to be like, what was the culture we wanted to develop, how did we want to engage, and all of this wrapped up in the brand essence. And I think that's been hugely important for us, and particularly in the context of authenticity, because it was everybody in the firm at that point in time, everybody contributed, and so as a result, everybody owns it, and I'm sure everybody feels a sense of ownership in that. And then we work with Brandex to help bring it to life and project it, and their advice in terms of how we could convey the energy and the desire to do things slightly differently.
So I think that's so crucially important. It's not just a story you tell outside. It's you could be and do and believe that story internally, and everyone's going to be part of that. So all the employees being shareholders, all being part of that sort of creation and evolution is hugely powerful.
Yeah, and I think walking that walk is, it comes from the top, but the team really does inhabit the brand eventually. For me, walking into a new office that we've branded, once the team has moved in, it's probably the most concrete physical structure that is the brand. And you see people there with the, we've put up the confetti distraction strips using our logo. We've got the painted colors, the columns that appear on people's Teams calls. And it's just, you walk in, it's like Mosaic, and that's, Mosaic is here and people are living it. And we've done that for 8 offices in 7 countries now. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Rose talked about just earlier about reaching out to clients and getting feedback. And we've also had a couple of internal people surveys as well. So, and we wanted to make sure that we're still on track and check the temperature there. So it may be slightly unusual given how young we are to have done that, but
but it's hugely important to make sure everyone's actually on point and with you and behind you.
Yeah, and we feel really good that everybody's aligned, and I think it speaks to the power of the brand. And my brand's everything. Again, it's not about external presentation solely. It's literally everything.
So it's not just disrupting the market share, you're actually disrupting the people side of it, and people will see you as a company they want to be part of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we want to project high energy aspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most important thing.
And having that employer brand is important, It's how we grow. It's the kind of people we attract and retain. That energy, I think, is from what Mark described earlier. Employee owners bring that every day, and we're all trying to make the pie bigger, and just the energy to make something succeed that we're all invested in.
But to make that in 8 offices in 7 countries is no small feat. That's pretty amazing. That's really good.
Yeah,
because that is
a relatively short time,
Very short time.
Yeah.
People must be looking at it saying, wow, that's really good. That's really, really good. That's really interesting. Rose and Mark, I think it looks like we've run out of time. So thank you both very much for such a fascinating insight into how brand has helped create that vision and Mosaic as it is. As always, I thank you all to all of you for listening to another podcast from the Insurindex Podcast series. If you enjoyed our show, please like and share on the various social channels, and make sure you never miss an episode as we continue to explore the journey into how branding strategies have driven growth and transformed the specialty market. This is David Melvin. Until our next episode, goodbye.